Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Performance Cafe. And I'm so glad that I've got you here with me today. I've been wondering about accountability. So here's the thing. 43 BC, Publius Syrus, he died. And before he died, sometime before he died, not on the day, he said, never promise more than you can perform. So this got me to thinking that obviously accountability and a lack of performance has been around for a bit. Now, since then, we've done little things, like become civilized, more civilized than the Greeks. Sorry, let's watch out. That one is going to land with a thud. We have sent people to the moon, cured diseases, really, created technology. We have done so much. So why is it that accountability and getting people to do what they're meant to do, why is it still such a problem? And I think, when we speak on Performance Cafe, we speak about business, but if we think about it, anyone with a teenager or a 4-year-old understands exactly what I mean, right? So how do we know when something is a problem with accountability or whether it's just a hiccup? So I love this quote by John Foster Dulles. He was born in 1888, by the way, passed away in 1959. So more than 60 years ago, he said, the measure of success is not whether you have a tough problem to deal with, but whether it's the same problem you had last year. So I thought that was a great measure for accountability, because if we can find problems and fix them, that's one thing. It's entirely a different thing if a year later we're still stuck with the same problem. So the reason why I've been giving this so much thought is that even today, the problem of accountability has an incredible negative impact on business. We have seen whole businesses being scuttled by a lack of accountability. Needless to say, we have seen whole governments scuttled because of a lack of accountability, but let's not go there today. But to give you a couple of examples, research, an accountability study by Partners in Leadership, they did a workplace accountability study, and they said that 82% of respondents said that they have limited to no ability to hold others accountable successfully. 91% of those respondents, however, ranked accountability near the top of the company's developmental needs. So it's been a problem for a while. The American Management Association did their research, and they said 3% of executives said their company is very successful at executing strategic plans. 3% of companies said that they're very successful. However, 62% of executives said they're only moderately successful. That means that 62% of companies, if we can take that as the average, are not really doing what they want to do in their businesses and achieve the goals they want to achieve and make the difference they want to make. The last piece of research that I want to quote to you that I thought was fairly impressive was that McKinsey and Company analyzed revenue growth and profitability over a 10-year span. Now, they did this for 1,077 companies. Less than 1% of those companies achieved superior levels of high performance in both revenue growth and profitability. That means the big fancy companies that we're also impressed by potentially are as battling as much with accountability as we are. So I then sat and I thought, well, okay, I don't actually believe that people embrace purposelessness. It's just like logical, right? If you think about it, our deepest instincts are actually to fit in and to work together and to collaborate. A, because it gives us purpose, but B, because it's really kind of good for survival. Remember with a caveman, one saber-toothed tiger, not going to happen, right? But one caveman or 10 cavemen and one saber-toothed tiger, and there's hopes for survival. And I think there's a lot of that instinct still in us. So yes, for the introverts, they might not want 50 friends, but we would want to fit in and to be part of something. I think a place where we see this very often is any event where there's a popular sports team, if we think about our young adults, adults and not so young adults, that enjoy playing video games and TV games because they're part of this purposeful mission to get something done, normally with someone else, and along the way they get rewards, right? That is not the mark of people that don't actually want to achieve something. So I thought, okay, so accountability. Where do we start looking at why it's broken? And I have to quote Shakespeare. I know it's early on a Wednesday morning, but at a stage, Juliet in Romeo and Juliet says, "What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other word would smell as sweet." And herein lies the rub. The word accountability is not a rose. It's kind of stinky. Hear me out. When we take a look at what the dictionary definition of the word of accountability is, it says it's the state of being accountable, liable, and answerable. It's the obligation to explain, justify, and take responsibility for one's actions. So accountability is the state of being accountable, meaning being responsible for something or obliged to answer to someone, which normally is a person with more authority than what you have. Right. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think that that sounds marvelously motivating. It doesn't feel like I'm being told that, I'm going to achieve greatness when I take accountability. It means that I'm probably just going to keep myself out of trouble. It probably implies that someone expects trouble. It's just not a great word. So I then said, right, there's got to be another word that means accountability or has the same effect. However, it means a lot. It means something better. So I went synonyms for accountability: responsibility, liability, answerability, reporting, and wait for it, obedience. Right. No luck there. So I think this is exactly the problem, is that when we say to people, I'm going to hold you accountable, I'm going to make you accountable, we're not saying to them, I'm giving you the benefit of owning a thing, a task, a process that belongs to you in such a way that it's going to empower you and you are going to grow through it. Right? When I say accountability, I mean you're going to have to show you are right. Remember, we said justify. So show or prove that you are right or reasonable. The moment someone includes the word prove into something, it's going to have a negative effect because people don't want to need to prove that they are right or reasonable. Think about the saber-toothed tiger incident. We want to band together. We want to fit in. We want to collaborate and be part of something bigger. So if I have to prove that I'm right, it means I'm going against the grain, right? It's counterintuitive to align the word justify with something where I'm going to give you an advantage. Next, obligation, whether you like it or not, right? To act in a course of action where you are going to have to explain to someone and again justify what you did. And by giving you this, I'm not saying, or we are not saying that I'm going to give you this as a benefit and I'm going to reward you for something you've done well. We're saying, oh, you've done so well, I'm going to give you this thing, you're going to be obliged to do it, you better do it well, and if not, if you become wrong in the process, well, then it's all going to fall apart at the seams. And if you think about it, actually just at the most base level, if you think of the words hold accountable, we hold politicians accountable because they've normally done something scandalous because it just makes the news more interesting. Otherwise, they've just done something wrong in their role, which is disappointing. Or We're going to hold someone accountable when they've done something wrong, like, for example, sports teams. Our team did not win the cup this time. They will be held accountable for poor decisions on the team, a lack of, right? Think about it. Have you ever heard someone say at the Academy Awards, "We would like to present this award to Meryl Streep for her accountability above and beyond"? Right? You don't. You say that for excellent performance, but accountability makes us scared. It robs us of performance because we've got to be obliged and justify and accountable. And here's my next bugbear. With the word accountability, we are going to have to explain ourselves to someone with more authority. My problem here is that the moment you say authority, power dynamics enters the room. The moment that there's power dynamics, again, we have possibility of failure, judgment, condemnation, and being held accountable. If I'm accountable to someone who is partnering with me, there's no power dynamics. There's only collaboration. And so you can see where I'm going with this, that accountability just leaves a lot to be desired. Now, I know it seems as if I'm playing with words here, but I think it's very important that we talk about accountability and that we understand that it comes across like a jail sentence. It's not going to motivate us to do our best. If we are holding other people accountable, it places pressure on us. Because trust me, the person being held accountable thinks they're stressed. The person who holds people accountable is as stressed. And it's therefore, it doesn't set up any part of the system for success. So now we ask the question, what do we replace it with? Well, I'm going to be keeping that for the next episode because there's quite a lot to cover there. And we're also probably going to be taking a look at things like, in the next couple of episodes, why don't we want to hold others accountable? How do we hold ourselves accountable or not? Remember, charity starts at home. And then what do we do with this word of accountability? So I have a challenge for you in the next week, and I think this is going to become a bit of a series. I feel that coming on. I would like to challenge you this week to do nothing else but consciously become aware that when you're giving people feedback, whether it is formal performance feedback, whether you are just having your weekly call and something's come up, so it could be much less emotionally driven, much less of a crisis, I want you to become aware. Are you creating the jail sentence, or are you creating an opportunity for empowerment and learning? And just keep a note for yourself on who that happens with. So are you holding different people accountable in different ways? Are you seeing any patterns in the way that you hold people accountable? And make a note of that, because I'd like to see over the next couple of weeks whether anyone feels that they are doing exceptionally well or exceptionally poorly, and where they're picking up on the lessons. And then thirdly, I'd like you to start seeing what is the emotional reaction that accountability has, or holding your approach to holding someone accountable. What effect does it have on them, and how does it work? And now I see I have a friend on the line, Mulaji Mulobe. Lovely lady. Hello, good morning, Mulaji. Lovely to have you with us. Mulaji asked, how can we maintain answerability when we fall off the wagon of our goals a little? How do we get over that slip up and feelings of being unworthy and lacking answerability? So Mulaji, this is probably one of the most important questions, because I think firstly we must understand, how often can we be held accountable? So for example, and I know I'm going to the extreme, and I'm really going to answer your question in a second, but there's something that we do that I think is very unfair. I drive down a particular street and I land up in an accident, no fault of my own. Am I accountable for getting into the accident? No, I just happened to be on that street. I didn't even make that decision potentially for any particular reason, except that Google Maps probably got me there because I get lost. Okay, so I think we must really ask ourselves, what can we be held accountable for, and what can we hold others accountable for? And then I think it's such an interesting question, because I actually had this discussion, part of this discussion with some of your ex-colleagues yesterday, Mutlachi, where when I've fallen off, it's not the fact that I've fallen off that's the issue, it's how I come back. So, for example, I have work to do for a project manager, and I slip up, I get the times wrong, whatever happens. One thing that I could do is I can just keep quiet and try and make up for the lost time. Or I can go to the manager and project manager and say, look, this has happened. That was the reason why I slipped up. But this is my plan on how to get back on track. Right. You're never going to make anyone happy by slipping up. No one's going to thank you for it. But they will thank you for being honest about it, taking ownership of it, and then making it as right as you can in the time you have available. It's very similar to the concept of dieting. Is if we're on a diet and we're not supposed to have chocolate, and we slip up and we have a block of chocolate and we go, well, I'm going to throw away the whole diet. Well, that actually doesn't serve us, because now what happens is we're taking one block of chocolate and throwing away our physical, our health. Where if I then go, I slipped up, what's my plan to get back on track, and who do I need to inform and make sure that they know that I'm back? I think that's the chocolate approach to ensuring that when we fall off the wagon, we get back on. And I think it's important for us to also own, it's not fun, but it's also to own that we slip up, but so do other people. I think sometimes, you speak about feelings of unworthiness, and I think that if we hold ourselves to too high a standard, we create a level of accountability that no one can reach, and then we'll start slipping up more and more and more and more. Mundachi says, taking ownership by showing why you slipped up, your plan to get on track. Oh, wonderful. Perfect. And this happens with everything, right? Whether we do business, whether we do relationships, it's all the same. It's about honestly owning it and showing that we are going to fix it. So thanks so much, Matlachi. It was so great speaking to you this morning. And thank you for that. Right, I believe we have no further questions. And so loving this, really enjoyed having Matlachi on with us this morning. And I think it's time for us to say goodbye and go and grab another cup of coffee at the Performance Cafe. And remember, if you have enjoyed this episode, please go and look us up. We are on all the major streaming platforms. We are also on YouTube, where you can go and see some of our past editions. And then until next Wednesday, see you.